Hey, welcome to Living for the Plot. My name is Stephanie. Today we're going to go over how on Friday, Candice Owens challenged Ben Shapiro to a fight, or a debate. Fight sounds cooler. If you had told me 10 years ago that I would be equally as interested in Ben Shapiro and Candice Owens fighting as I am in season 7 of My Hero Academia coming out, I would have called you a liar, but here we are. She asked him on X. It got pretty heated, so we're going to go into some of that, why it happened, where we're at. There's been a lot online lately, like, why did Candice Owens leave the Daily Wire? And then you click on it and it's clickbait and no one actually knows. So I'm not going to do that to you. I will admit that there is no hard evidence as to why Candice Owens left the Daily Wire, but we are going to go over some of the X comments back and forth between her and Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring. And you know, we're going to make our own assumptions based off that. So it started on Friday at high noon, 5 o'clock. I would like to debate Ben Shapiro on Israel and the current definition of anti-Semitism. Can somebody make that happen? Real quick, super silly that she's on X asking if anyone can make that happen. You did used to belong to the Daily Wire, so you could very easily text someone. And if you didn't want to text someone for whatever reason, I'm sure you know the business route that anyone would have to go to if they wanted to debate someone from the Daily Wire. So I want you to remember that she's doing this publicly on X for anyone who's like, later as we progress through these comments, people who are like, the Daily Wire are trying to make money, because some of the comments definitely say that. Yeah, maybe the Daily Wire was trying to make money off of it. I don't know how that works. But if you think she's not trying to get clout from publicly announcing this showdown on X, then like you're silly. You are silly. Andrew Shultz realizes Ben Shapiro is only good at debating college liberals and can't win debates against serious competition. And of course, by Andrew Shultz realizes, we mean he's repeating what anyone who hates Ben Shapiro has ever said for forever. Literally everything he's ever said or done is public online. You can go watch him debate other people besides college students. So if you're saying this, you've probably only ever seen clips of him debating college students and come to this conclusion. I would say Ben Shapiro does a lot better than Candice Owens. To cite specific sources for your viewing pleasure, she debated Destiny just a little while ago, and she seemed very, very silly, very unprepared. Going back 6 years ago, when she was first coming on the scene and she was still like red pill black, there's a debate between her and Blair White, conservative transgender woman, and the mediator was Ruben, and she seems very, very silly in that one. I never knew kind of what I felt was off about Candice, but I feel like after I saw that and Blair White calls her out on being a mean girl from the beginning, I was like, that's it. I went to high school. I know mean girls. I was a mean girl for a minute. I know what mean girls are. You're a mean girl. That's what she is. That's how she appears to me. I'm not saying you should think that way. Do your own research, obviously. But that's how she appears in that video, and I can't not see her that way after that idea being presented to me. But let's see what Andrew Shultz has to say, because apparently people care.
He makes the argument for censorship. He calls it something else.
Yeah, I forget the term. I have it in my phone.
But I don't even think he's using the term right. But he's basically like, there's a window of ideas we accept.
Yes.
And we accept ideas between this, I guess this is, if like a window, you're looking like this. So we accept here and here. And anything outside of that window, well, you're fireable. That's censorship.
What?
But he's acting as if this is like a justified
It's definitely not censorship, because what he has been saying everywhere is, hey, no one is silencing Candice Owens. She's not being kicked off of platforms. She's still on YouTube. She's still on Locals. She's still on X. Like, she can very clearly still say whatever she wants. She even probably has enough money now. She can be doing her own documentaries. Like, she's still flying places. She's still going to London. Like, she can continue making documentaries. She just will be releasing them on her own. They won't have the backing of the Daily Wire behind them. And that's a choice. That's like that business that people wanted to cancel because it was like a cake making business and they didn't want to make a cake for a gay wedding. That's their business. They are allowed to not do that. They can turn away. If someone walks in with no shirt and no shoes, they can be like, sorry, we're not going to serve you. That's how a private business works. Like, sorry. Like, so yeah, Daily Wire can absolutely do that. She's not being kicked off of Locals, or she can be on Rumble. She can be on YouTube. Like, she just, while she works for the Daily Wire, anything she says represents the value of the company, the Daily Wire. So it makes sense that if she's saying things that don't align with their values, they wouldn't want her representing their company. Like, That makes sense to me. I feel like people are like doing some mental gymnastics to make that not make sense.
For firing people when you built your identity and platform off of no censorship and freedom of speech. And facts don't care about your feelings and all this shit.
It's also funny that window happens to end where his beliefs end.
I am shocked you would say that.
Not being pro-Israel.
Also, facts don't care about your feelings isn't really relevant because what Candice is saying is her opinion on facts, which is what they're paying her to give. So her opinions aren't really facts. She might present facts, but then she's not getting in trouble for presenting the facts. She's getting in trouble for presenting her opinions on those facts. Okay, so Destiny had some interesting things to say, so I'm going to play his video real quick.
Pull up this clip from Andrew Shultz. I don't know what all of a sudden happened and prompted Andrew Shultz to say this, but go ahead and play this clip of Andrew Shultz reacting to what happened between Ben Shapiro and Candice Owens. Go ahead.
He makes the argument for censorship. He calls it something else.
Yeah, I forget the term I have in my phone.
I don't even think he's using the term right, but he's basically like, there's a window, accept.
Yes.
And we accept ideas between this, I guess this is like a window, you're looking like this. We accept ideas between here and here. And anything outside that window, well, you're fired. That's censorship. But he's acting as if this is like a justified reason for firing people when you built your identity and platform off of no censorship and freedom of speech. And facts don't care about your feelings and all this shit.
It's also funny that window happens to end where his beliefs end.
I am.
That's how I felt too.
Andrew Shultz is completely fucking wrong, but I don't care. Conservatives have played a dangerous and stupid game for a long time with a lot of different things. One of those things has been with freedom of speech. The First Amendment of the United States applies to the federal government, and I believe subsequently through incorporation to the state government, saying that the government cannot make laws abridging, meaning attacking or restricting, right? Your freedom of speech without some other types of reason, right?
That is true. I agree with that.
Abridging. But the reality is the argument is correct on Ben's side that, hold on, just because I'm pro freedom of speech, and on Elon's side, by the way, just because I'm freedom of speech doesn't mean that I have to pay employees that I don't agree with at all. That's not freedom of speech. You're commanding me that I got to pay somebody that I completely disagree with in terms of media? That's ridiculous.
Obviously, you would say be pro-Israel. That's where the window ends. Your specific personal belief. I just don't see.
You can't have an opinion on your platform that is not pro a country that is not ours?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
It's crazy.
So is the Daily Wire an American media platform or is it an Israeli media platform?
This guy's cooking.
He's not cooking. He's not.
If the rule is, I'm just saying, if the rule is, you can...
Sure. So does that mean that CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, are those all Palestinian media platforms? Are those all, is it like Al CNN? Is it Al Jazeera BC? Like, I mean, come on. Bro.
No, if the rule is, I'm just saying, if the rule is, you cannot be critical, because he has no problem being very critical of America. Yep. Critical of the left in America, left in half the country. You have no problem eviscerating half the country.
That's the current power and party in power.
But you can't criticize Israel as a country. It's just another country, unless you're saying, and you're clear.
To Destiny's point, yeah, CNN, MSNBC, MSN, they are all super critical of the right. Like, so you could be applying the same logic to them. Like, literally, Rachel Maddow on MSNBC was saying that she would no longer be playing Trump speeches because they do not feel it to be newsworthy. He's a presidential candidate. So basically, you think your audience is too stupid to dislike him on their own, or so stupid in your mind that they will be too easily swayed, so you're just not going to play campaign speeches from a presidential candidate anymore? I guess you could be saying the same thing. That's pretty anti-America. And I've seen recent news stories on those channels where they're saying you only have one choice. Biden is the only choice. If you want America to survive, that's your only choice. So don't vote. Don't worry about the democratic process because Trump's going to ruin it anyways. Don't vote. Don't vote. Just vote for Biden. That's your only choice.
I don't like these retarded things like, oh, you can't even criticize that it was... First of all, do we know why she was fired? And secondly,
We don't.
The issues don't have to do with her probably just being critical. It's the weird Jewish that she talks about. Who made porn? Like, that's...
Which is exactly what I said. It's not about the facts she is presenting. She is presenting some facts. It's her commentary on that. It's her, I'm just asking questions. It's her, oh, Jews are in control of everything. Let's talk about that. It's gotten weird.
If you have all these questions, you've had all these questions for months, and you haven't done any research into it, seems like you don't have any questions at all. Seems like you're not actually curious. Seems like you don't actually give a fuck. You're just asking questions to spread a conspiracy. That's it. That's all you're doing.
Right? This is the game that is played by so many corrupt commentators, just asking questions. I don't have to show you evidence that something terrible is happening. I don't have to actually demonstrate how the thing is happening. I don't have to tell you who the problem is. Wink, wink. But I can just tell you right now that there is but even, and if I'm asked about it, hey, I'm just asking questions. Now, let me tell you something about just asking questions for a second. Just asking questions is a game for children. My son is 7. He can just ask questions. My daughter is 10. She can just ask questions. If you are 50 and you are just asking questions, I don't think you're just asking questions. I think that you're...
Think about this in the context of Candice Owens. Just asking questions. She's gotten so deep into this conspiracy theorist thing. She's gotten so much hype for the documentaries she's done, and they're good and they're interesting, but then she goes way too far into it to the point where it's like, okay, it's fine if you bring up these theories, but then like you got to back them up. Like, instead of debating Ben Shapiro, why aren't you pursuing what you were pursuing on the Daily Wire, which was tracing all this money that all these Jews are contributing and why it's nefarious? Like, just keep doing that and you would keep getting views. Like, unless it's just the hype from the conspiracy itself and you don't actually want to answer those questions.
Curiosity is actually quite low. I think that you don't care enough to know or know enough to care. I think that the vast majority of people who are in the just asking questions business have an answer that they want to suggest, but they know there's no evidence for it, so instead they hide behind just asking questions. In other words, they're completely full of...
Okay, so he accepts. He says, let's do it. Monday, 90 minutes, 5 p.m., no problem. And she responds, I'm sure you can appreciate why I'd prefer to keep this off the Daily Wire platform, as well as the true reason why we were never able to make any discussion happen. Let's choose a neutral, trustworthy platform. I vote Patrick Bet David. I feel like a few things. I feel like it's very, very silly if you're going to be like, say things like, as well as the true reason why we were never able to make any discussion happen. Either say what the reason is, or like have this discussion privately. Like, I don't like, if you're not willing to say what it is, but you're wanting to point out that he knows what it is, I don't think there's anything there. I think she's just like, I guess you can't say it. Maybe you'll get in trouble contractually, but I don't know. It just sounds like really catty, mean girl bullcrap. Like, if you really don't think that you can say whatever that is in public, like, text him. I'm sure you have his number, text him. Let's choose a neutral, trustworthy platform. And then that insinuates that Daily Wire isn't neutral. So then she's like basically saying that the Daily Wire isn't trustworthy, or they would somehow put their finger on the scale of this debate. And then she suggests Patrick Bet David, which we'll get back to that. But I saw his episode about the Christ is King controversy, and either someone didn't look into it enough, or they don't really know what was going on, because they just focused on it not being anti-Semitic based on just the obvious. But there's a podcast called the Relatable Podcast, and she delves way deeper into it. And she's friends with Candice, and she says, I don't believe that Candice meant it this way, but this is why this is coming up. And I feel like that was a lot more genuine than just people being like, this isn't anti-Semitic, people are really pushing this. It's like, no, there's a story there. Like, there's always a story there, guys. Don't just believe like the surface level bull crap. So Ben responds, Candice, I can see why you'd want to hide behind a moderator. Also pretty catty of Ben, but, you know, I guess I'm biased too. Particularly one who said we should rename our company the Daily Jewish Wire just yesterday.
Here's context for the PBD thing.
Ben and Candice, let me first start off by saying I am so happy the two of you guys are talking, as well as agreeing to do a sit down. Obviously, the detail is the challenge, where we're going to figure out. Let me give you a couple things I want you to be thinking about. One, Ben, let me address your issue about what I said yesterday with the Daily Israeli Wire. I even said the Daily Jewish Wire. If you haven't watched the entire context of what I said, I'm going to...
So just for the record, he said both. He said the Daily Israeli Wire and the Daily Jewish Wire, because I saw some comments where people saying like, oh, Ben is mischaracterizing what he said. That's just proof that he thinks anytime someone mentions Israel, they're talking about Jews. It's like he just said out loud that he said both. The Daily Israeli Wire as well as the Daily Jewish Wire.
Link below. You can go watch the entire thing on what I said from the beginning to the end. I highly recommend you watch it. Secondly, why I think you have to know where my perspective is slightly different is I understand where you're coming from, because I lived in Iran. as a kid from the day I was born till 10 years old, where we were bombed 167 times in one day, 500,000 people died, and I was a Christian kid living in a nation where 98% were...
Forget about what I said. Forget about what I said. Just focus on my victim story. Focus on my victim story. Do not focus on what I said, because I can't actually defend that.
We were afraid to talk about what we were all about. So I feel the pain of people living in Israel, and I fully feel the pain of some of the folks who are Christian folks maybe living in Palestine that don't agree with what's going on with Hamas. I understand both sides, and that's why I understand what Candice is saying, and I also understand why you have the position that you have. Having said that, there's a couple things I
definitely wouldn't be a biased moderator. I'm playing both sides. I definitely understand both sides. I feel like he's saying, I definitely wouldn't be biased. I definitely wouldn't be biased. But if you actually go and watch his shows, I feel like he's leaning more in a Candice direction, even though he's trying to seem unbiased.
Be thinking about. Number one,
What? I'm sorry. How? What is anti-Semitism when you get bombed all the time? Or I don't understand how that connected at all. Did I just not understand that? I'm sorry. I have to re-listen.
Because it didn't.
To the end, I highly recommend you watch it. Secondly, why I think you have to know where my perspective is slightly different is I understand where you're coming from, because I lived in Iran. As a kid from the day I was born till 10 years old, where we were bombed 167 times in one day, 500,000 people died, and I was a Christian kid living in a nation where 98% were Muslim. We were afraid to talk about what we were all about. So I feel the pain of people living in Israel, and I fully feel the pain of some of the folks who are Christian folks maybe living in Palestine that don't agree with what's going on with Hamas.
Okay. I think you just wanted to shoehorn that into there.
That's correct.
Okay. I understand both sides, and that's why I understand what Candice is saying, and I also understand why you have the position that you have. Having said that, there's a couple things I want you to be thinking about.
He's saying he was bombed like Israel's bombing Palestine. Yeah, but I think my guess is going to be when Ben Shapiro, is having like broader talks about like anti-Semitism, or especially when you're talking about people like Candice Owens, it's the weird like anti-Semitic conspiracy about everything. It's not actually like directly related to Israel-Palestine.
100%.
Maybe the context for what they were arguing about was, though. But I know
that is the whole thing with the Candice Owens Ben Shapiro thing. Like, they're trying to be like, oh, conservative civil war, and it's like, well, it kind of is, because Candice Owens is trying to make it about, like, she even has a tweet where she's saying, oh, Ben, you've been way too emotional about this. And, like, it's not about that. And we've been dealing with your, I forget how she refers to it, but basically saying that he's going over the top, being emotional. We've tried to be sensitive to your, I don't know, I don't want to say dysfunction because that's not what she said, but something along those lines. And trying to make it about that, but it's really not. And I feel like that goes back to I'm a mean girl, I'm going to see what I can get away with undercover. I'm going to keep making these things that I know are going to be construed as anti-Semitic, anti-Jew, but I'm going to do it under the cover of, oh no, I just don't agree with this war. I'm just Christian. I don't know what you're talking about. It's like, yes, you do. Yes, you do. Either you do or you're dumb. And I don't think it's that. I don't think it's that you're dumb. So then you do know, and you're trying to see what you can get away with. And it's just, it didn't work. You got fired.
Candice has a lot of weird kind of anti-Semitic shit, though, that's not really anything about Israel or Palestine. But maybe I just don't know the context. I'm not sure.
Number one, you are Jewish. I think you're from Burbank, California, if I'm not mistaken. You got 4 kids. I'm Middle Eastern, Armenian, Assyrian, born in Iran. I went to Glendale, California. And then we have Candice, who I believe is from White Plains, New York, with 3 kids. We're all family folks, right? When we come down and sit down and have the conversation together.
What has she said that's been anti-Semitic? She does like the weird thing about like Jews controlling society, or why is this Jewish man attacking me? It's just like the weird just asking questions about the Jews shit. I feel like she was heavily implying in tweets a month ago or 2 months ago that Jews created porn to destroy like white men in the West. She was like on that kick. She's just always been on like weird shit like that.
We're in America today. So this is my proposal to you. If you're America first, we, Valuetainment, have agreed that if you want to do the sit down with us, a fair and balanced sit down, the moderating of the 2 of you, we will give $250,000 to Laken Riley's.
I think that's just cheap. Before we get to what Destiny said about that, I think that's cheap. It's like Laken Riley has nothing to do with this. nothing. So he prefaced this by saying, we're all family folks. So if you want to be America first, here's what I'm going to propose. It's like, why are you trying so hard? Why do you really want to be the moderator? Oh, could it be for the same reason as Candice? It's because you want those Candice views. You want those Daily Wire views. You want them on your channel. Like, as you know, like, you're a businessman. I get it. I get why you would want to insert yourself into this controversy, but you also know that they literally already said no. You started this out with pointing out the fact that Ben knows you referred to the Daily Wire as the Daily Israeli Wire or the Daily Jewish Wire, and you had no explanation for that. You were just like, oh, go. I encourage you to watch the full video. It's like, okay, so you acknowledge it. You moved past it. You talked about your victim story. And now you're saying, oh, I'll donate money because America first. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's too much. I feel like now you're using Laken Riley as like some sort of political pawn, which I don't know, seems a little distasteful. And they already said no. So like, what are you doing? What do you think you're doing here?
Family. Because of what's happening today with illegal immigration.
That's such a weird connection. Oh my God.
Nope.
Why would you even invoke? That's so weird. Okay. $250,000.
I feel like it's also like kind of trying to, he did a poor job of it, but it's almost kind of like applying pressure. Like it's almost like, I don't know what to call it, but kind of saying like, if you don't want me to be moderator, I understand. But I mean, if you do, then you're for America and you're for Laken Riley. It's like, what? Like, what? No, he already said no moderators. Not just you don't get to moderate, but he will not agree to a moderator. Both him and Jeremy Boring said that. So what you doing? What you doing? Sounds like you're really desperately trying to get those views.
Is this interview worth $250,000?
Apparently it is to him, and that's what I would question.
10 million views on the video.
What is it Candice says? Follow the money, right? Follow the money. Why is he willing to drop that much money just to prove he's America first, just to get a shot at putting on, moderating this debate between Candice Owens and Ben Shapiro? I feel like that lends credence to the he would not be fair and unbiased statement that Ben Shapiro made.
$250,000, that's so much money for this interview.
Mm-hmm. So why would he do that? How does that serve him?
It's the number one issue in America, and I think it matters if you're open to it. I think I live 25 minutes away from you. Let's make this happen and unite specifically to the biggest voices in the conservative space.
Please, for the love of God, let me be a part of this. Please, for the love of God, let me be a part of this. Candice Owens and Ben Shapiro are going to fight. Everyone's going to watch it. Please let me insert PBD in the center of this. Please. No one-on-one Monday at 5 p.m. So he said no to the moderator, which I totally agree with. I honestly think moderators get in the way, like, of most debates, even presidential debates. Like, most of the time you just want the moderator to shut the F up and let the debaters go off, because that's when you learn how they really feel about things. We can sit down and have a healthy debate like adults, and we'll live stream it on X and YouTube. Take it or leave it. And that's great. Live stream it on X or YouTube. That's perfect. It's not going to be edited. Everyone's going to see it in real time. Like, so I don't know why there would be complaint on that. As for the true reason you didn't respond to my offer to sit down with you and discuss these issues publicly or privately back in February, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. So here he says, like, if there were true reasons why you didn't respond to my offer to debate, like, I don't know what they are, because you definitely didn't tell me publicly or privately. So yeah, I think she's just being like a catty bee there. Just my opinion, could be wrong. And then, right after that, Ben Shapiro says, I'm now signing off for Shabbat. I'll plan to be in Nashville for this conversation on Monday. So he basically gave her a time and a place, and then said, hey, it's Shabbat. I'm not going to be talking on here anymore. So Jeremy takes over for him. Jeremy Boring, head of the Daily Wire. It's Sabbath, but I think Ben was clear. One-on-one, in person, Nashville. Monday, 5 p.m., live streamed on X and YouTube. So he's reiterating what Ben already said. I'll add there will be no ads on the video and no charge to watch it. No one cashes in. So No one cashes in. That's important because a whole bunch of people in the comments were like, of course the Daily Wire is wanting to make money off of this, as if that's an insult. Yeah, they're a business. Candice, if you don't think Candice is going to get clout from this, she will. Even if neither side monetizes it, everyone who pays attention to Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire, which I would assume is a larger audience than just Candice Owens fans, are going to be watching this. So if you don't think she's going to get clout from this, regardless of if anyone gets paid from it, you are silly. You debated Destiny on his show without a moderator less than a month ago, and maybe that's why she wants a moderator, because that went horribly for her, and have debated plenty of people without a moderator on your own show. That's true. You asked for a debate. If you want it, come and have it. I love that. I feel like that's a little feisty, and I appreciate it because she's being super catty, in my humble opinion. One, you know I'm in London and cannot appear in person. You have known for months I was going to be in London this week. I feel like that's super, narcissistic of her to assume that even if at one point they did know when she was to be out of town, that her schedule is somehow more important than their personal schedule or the personal schedules of anybody else who is actually currently on their team and not an ex-member of their team. So just because they knew at one time doesn't mean that they have memorized her entire schedule. Daily Wire employees were initially slated to be here with me, so publicly pretending you guys are not aware of this seems odd. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. If you think something's weird for someone doing it, I would always say, how does that benefit them? How does it benefit him to pretend he doesn't know that you're out of town or pretend to forget that you're out of town? Because then he can name a time and a place and you won't show up, I guess. But you're literally having a discussion on X right now. You very easily could have just been I'm in London right now. Here's a new date and time. So easy. Would be done already. But she didn't. She didn't give a new date and time. She didn't say when she would be back. 2, I can certainly swing this virtually on Monday. 1-on-1 if you guys really just cannot wait for me to get back. It's so catty. So catty. But I am refusing to allow this to happen on any Daily Wire platform. They already said they would do it on X or on YouTube. That's not their platform. This request seems perfectly reasonable and understandable to everyone but the Daily Wire. Why is that? And she's really trying to pick a fight and they're literally giving her a time and place. If anything, she should be responding with an alternate time and place since she is the one who cannot make it instead of just name calling like a mean girl. Jeremy Boring responds, I don't know your international travel schedule, Candice. I know when you've wanted to talk to someone in the past, you've flown across the world to make it happen. You asked for a debate. Oh, but now it's probably coming out of her pocket, not the Daily Wire pocket. So maybe it's different now. You asked for a debate. Ben agreed to a debate. You don't want it on the Daily Wire channel? Fine, we can live stream it to your channels. You don't want to shoot it at Daily Wire studios? Fine, we'll rent a studio in Nashville. So they're offering to spend money to rent a studio to do it. You don't want a Daily Wire crew? Fine, we'll hire a local crew. Again, offering to spend money to hire a crew outside the Daily Wire in Nashville. You don't want Daily Wire to pay for it? Fine, you're rich, you can pay for it yourself. I think that's hilarious. I hope they do make her pay for it. You don't want to do it Monday? Fine. Let us know how long you need to prepare. That's funny. We will not agree to a moderator. No third party to put their finger on the scale. I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. All you have to do is watch a presidential debate to see how that works out. The moderator is always leaning one direction or the other, and it ends up with people being cut off or stopped while the other person gets more time to talk. No, just talk. You're a big girl. He's a big boy. You can just talk it out. We will not agree to a moderator. No third party put their finger on the scale. We will not agree to a virtual event or edited video. Smart move. They know what they're doing. Live, in person, 1-on-1. And I feel honestly, with those, the rest of this is just noise. He is absolutely correct. He's absolutely correct. The rest of this is just noise. Because let's go back. Let's talk about the noise. I can certainly swing this virtually on Monday, 1-on-1, if you guys really just cannot wait for me to get back, noise. But I'm refusing to allow this to happen on any Daily Wire platform, noise. This request seems perfectly reasonable and understandable to everyone but the Daily Wire. Why is that? Noise. She's a mean girl, guys. I promise you. Like, I really want this debate to happen, and I really hope she is, like, outed as the catty mean girl she is. Again, that's just my personal opinion. I don't know Candice Owens. Maybe she's a lovely person, but she really comes off as a mean girl, in my opinion. Okay, so in response to him saying, I don't know your international travel schedule, she says, barring the odd insinuation that you didn't know your own employees were booked on international flights to come join me in London to film for your platform, this is great. Barring the odd insinuation that you didn't... First of all, it wasn't an insinuation, it was a statement. Second of all, I just feel like that I don't understand the reasoning behind lying about that. From the outside looking in, maybe she knows better than I do because she actually worked for them, but it seems like a big company. It doesn't seem like the head of the company is the one arranging you guys flying around or keeping that schedule for you. Like, I feel like that would be delegated to somebody else. Again, maybe I'm wrong, but if he doesn't know, I would assume that it's because it's not his job to keep track of your schedule or any of the other Daily Wire's members' schedules. I fully accept no moderator. I will get in touch privately to get this set up. Major win. Okay, so here's the question. Why didn't she just get in touch privately in the first place to get it set up? You know why? Because she wanted to build hype. She wanted to build on the controversy that is already existing around Candice Owens versus Ben Shapiro. How'd she get fired? She's trying to generate clout for whatever she's trying to do, her own platform, her own channel, joining the Tucker Carlson network, whatever she's going to do, she wants to attempt to steal Daily Wire members and bring them over with her. So she's trying to generate clout. Otherwise, she would have done this privately in the first place, because right here she's admitting that she can. I will get in touch privately to get this set up. Let's see if she actually does. Okay. And then she responds to, even though Ben Shapiro was no longer online, because this is at 7:33, this conversation started at 5. She responds to what Ben Shapiro said, saying that, Candice, I can see why you'd want to hide behind a moderator, particularly one who said we should rename our company the Daily Jewish Wire just yesterday. She responded to that saying, I'm not, quote unquote, hiding behind a moderator, LOL. I'm just choosing not to bring eyes to the Daily Wire. Okay, so she says, I'm not hiding behind a moderator, LOL. I'm just choosing not to bring eyes on the Daily Wire. So I guess here she's saying that her intent behind using PBD as a moderator was so that it would be on his channel and not the Daily Wire. But to me, this is like, if anything, proof that she clearly got fired, because she is bitter AF, or at least put in a position to where she had to huff and puff and quit, you know, for, I don't know, I guess what she thinks is her integrity, but she's looking really super silly. You don't want to bring eyes to the Daily Wire. No, you want to bring eyes to yourself, and that's why you are insisting on if you really didn't want to bring eyes to the Daily Wire, then you wouldn't attempt to debate a Daily Wire personnel. You wouldn't be trying to debate Ben Shapiro. You would just go do your own thing. But you're trying to bring eyes to you while simultaneously not bringing eyes to the Daily Wire. That's not going to happen. It's a debate between you and, the face of the Daily Wire, essentially, Ben Shapiro. So please, girl, please. You are rather typically removing PBD's words from their proper context. I would love to hear what the proper context is. I'm going to have to find that out. To make it seem as though he baselessly attacked you. So is he removing it out of context, or are you just saying that his claim isn't baseless? Because those are different things. Rather, he offered free advice. The Daily Wire would not take heat if they were open about their priorities. So then she's attacking them for being what she deems to be pro-Israel. Such a catty lady. But I'll choose to be understanding regarding your exhaustive sensitivities to everyone, everywhere. But I'll choose to be understanding. God, goodness. I'm so glad she's being understanding, because what would we do otherwise? I can't even imagine what not understanding Candice sounds like, because would you prefer Charlie Kirk or at Tim Cast? I honestly feel like any moderator would be in the way. Like, honestly, if they, just like they could claim that PBD tipped the scales in her favor, she could then later claim that Charlie Kirk or Tim Cast tipped the scales in Ben Shapiro's favor. Like, so it's just better, just no moderator. Just, they already said it, just like you and them live, no ads, no nothing. Just talk it out. People are going to watch it. No one makes money. Like, I don't know why she's pushing for this thing that they already said no about. Okay, so this is a little bit of the PBD podcast and what they had to say about Candice Owens. Let's listen to some of this.
Daily Wire and Candice Owens have ended their relationship. Co-founder Jeremy Boring wrote on social media, and Owens puts out there saying, "I am finally free," she said in recent months. Owens cited a firestorm of backlash with her anti-Semitic commentary about the United States' role in the ongoing war. Look at the words they're using.
I know,
in these
anti-Semitic. They love that word.
Owens also floated claims that with a small group of Jews in Hollywood and Washington, D.C. were involved in something sinister. Okay, so now Newsweek. Keep in mind how they're all reacting to this. Candice Owens says she cannot be silenced after the Daily Wire.
Okay, so that's why that headline, it's not their fault. That's why that headline was full of bullshit. Because they're reading all the headlines that started coming out afterwards that were all, just made up stuff.
Daily Wire CEO blasts Candice Owens after Christ is King. This was a little bit of a weird tweet, Rob. Can you pull this up of Jeremy Boring that Christ is King? And is this the one? Yeah, so how is...
Okay, so we'll listen to this Christ is King controversy, and then I'll skip to another video that breaks it down much better than they do, because they just act like we don't know where this came from. Clearly it's not anti-Semitic. So let's listen to this real quick.
Christ is King anti-Semitic, says the CEO, Jeremy Boring of Daily Wire. We've had him on. I actually really enjoyed the conversation we had. The same way anything becomes anti-Semitic when it is used for the purpose of expressing anti-Semitism. It's like asking, how does a shovel become a murder weapon? When it is used to murder someone, this isn't hard. A shovel is not innately a murder weapon. Saying Christ is King is not innately anti-Semitic. It's all about how a thing is used. Saying eat some cornbread is not racist if I say to my 3-year-old when she is refusing a dinner. If I start saying it to a response on X post by black commentators I don't like, it has taken on a meaning beyond what is innate. In other words, it is connotatively racist, not how do you pronounce that word? Denotatively racist. So to Christ is King may be anti-Semitic in connotation while not in denotation when it is used to express anti-Semitism. When did this become so? It has always been so. It is so. Yes, innately. Additionally, saying Christ is King for an evil purpose, like using it as a weapon to express your... I mean, it's just
what the hell?
You could have stopped a long...
Okay, I think they stopped reading it, so I'll keep reading it. Additionally, saying Christ is King for an evil purpose, like using it as a weapon to express your hatred or disdain for the Jews, is a grave sin. It plainly violates the third commandment, thou shalt not carry forth the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Surely if I rape and murder someone like Hamas did on 10:7, and all the while I shout at them, Christ is King or God is great, we would agree that I have committed 3 grievous crimes, not 2. Rape, yes. Murder, yes. But also the great crime of implicating God in the first 2 crimes. Okay, we're going to stop right there because they're going to get into other stuff. But that was Jeremy Boring's response to how is Christ is King anti-Semitic. And there's a lot of background that goes with it that if you just hear that, you're just like, what is this guy going on about? I'm a Christian. I had to look it up. I didn't know this was going on. But I honestly do not believe that Candice Owens did not know that people were saying it in this way, because she's constantly online. She's constantly on X. She's constantly in the midst of these controversies. She seemingly loves controversy. So there is a chance that she just said it as like a Christian. But given the timing and what was going on with her and Ben Shapiro, it really did seem like... Okay, so Mean Girl, let me break this down. Mean Girl Trick 101 is saying something that is very pointed for a single person, but to everyone else, you have complete deniability, okay? That's like going, oh, sweetie, and being a bitch about it, like being, not being nice. It's really kind of almost calling you stupid or looking down on you. And if the person who got called sweetie says that to anybody else, there's plausible deniability. Because I go to someone and she's like, oh, she was being real catty. And they go, oh, well, what did she say? What was she doing? She called me sweetie. Everyone's going to be like, oh, okay. So she does it a lot. And I feel like when you catch her doing it, you'll see it every time she does it. Like I said, go back 6 years, watch that video between the debate between her and Blair White. She does it at the very beginning. Blair White calls her out on it, and then she's thrown off the rest of the video, and you can see her like in the light of day. So I would not put it past her to have said that this as a pointed remark towards Ben or Jewish people or whatever. And she's not stupid. She knows she has the deniability of being like, what do you mean? I'm a Catholic. I'm a Christian. I was just saying Christ is king. That's totally innocent. But again, I know that she knows how it's being talked about on the internet. So let's go to another video real quick. Someone who can explain this better than me. And this lady, Allie Beth Stuckey, with the Relatable Podcast, she actually knows and has met with Candice, and she says she believes that she said it in the nicest possible way, but she also acknowledges why people were thinking this is anti-Semitic. So let's go ahead and listen to that.
Himself. And we will get to how all of this relates to Christ is King. Just buckle up, just hang with me. So she tweeted on November 3rd, so this is about a month after the original Hamas attack on Israel. She tweeted, "No government anywhere has a right to commit genocide ever. There is no justification for a genocide. I can't believe this even needs to be said or is even considered the least bit controversial to state." And so she is kind of defending some of the questions, some of the criticisms that she's had, not just about Israel's actions in the war with Hamas, but also America's involvement in that. And she would say this is just not a controversial statement. I'm talking about any country. Some people interpreted that to mean, well, you're playing both sides in this, when really it was Hamas who launched an unprovoked attack on Israeli civilians. And so we don't need to kind of play both sides on this. And that is the stance that Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire took. In a video that was circulating at a private event that followed these statements about Israel, Ben Shapiro called Candice Owens' response to the conflict and her behavior, quote, absolutely disgraceful. So he's like addressing a crowd. Someone is filming him on their phone. That ends up going around on Twitter, where he says, "I think her behavior during this has been disgraceful, without a doubt. I think her faux sophistication on these particular issues has been ridiculous." And he called her commentary on Israel disreputable. So as that video was circulating, again, this was in November, she tweeted on November 14th, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for their..."
Before we get to this Bible verse, take note that what Ben Shapiro said, she basically called Gaza a genocide in her tweet, and then Ben Shapiro at a private event, he got filmed on a camera, he got asked about it. He said that he thought her comment was disgraceful, and he thought that she was showing faux sophistication on the subject. I really don't think that's as bad as everyone made it out to be. They were like, oh no, they're at odds, Candice is leaving. Like, it was just like, no, they disagreed on a subject. Everyone is very, very clear on how Ben Shapiro feels about that. Like, so I feel like that was kind of like, if anything, like a gotcha. Like, why would he not, like, even without him saying that, I could have guessed that that's what he would have said. And as far as faux sophistication, that's how I feel about Candice on most subjects. Like, again, going back to the debate with her and Destiny, she tries to come off as very well-read and well-educated, but in that debate specifically, once she's taken off her talking points, which aren't really, deep subjects, it's pop culture, she gets very agitated and starts name-calling, and ends up looking very, very silly. And again, if you go back to her debating with Blair White, the same thing there. I don't know, I think it was just a disagreement. I think it didn't have to get as big as it was. I really think Candice Owens is kind of a phony, and I feel like there's a lot more going on behind closed doors than we actually know about. She's a phony. I don't buy it. But let's go ahead and this is a Bible verse that she tweeted.
Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. She says no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. She follows up to that, says Christ is king. Ben Shapiro fired back with a response. Again, this was November 15th that he tweeted this.
So right here, before we read Ben Shapiro's response, she is not only saying, like, you can't put God's law and law of man first. It has to be God's law first. So it really does sound like she's speaking directly to that, her previous tweet about the genocide, basically being like, oh, we're killing people, so that's against God's law. And then adding at the end, Christ is king, and we're about to see how that may have been construed as anti-Semitic. Throwing that in very subtly, very sneakily, very mean girlish, she could have very easily been meaning that as an attack towards Ben Shapiro. Again, plausible deniability. She can always act like, oh, that's not what I meant. I didn't mean that. He's assuming something I didn't mean. She's not dumb. She's not dumb. She may be a mean girl, but she's not dumb. She knew exactly what she was doing, in my opinion. She knew that she was doing it in a way that she could later be like, oh, I don't know what you mean. I'm innocent. You're just making assumptions. And once you've seen someone do this, it's very, very obvious that that's what they're doing. Literally, if you are a girl, you experienced this in high school. I promise you. If you didn't experience it in high school, you were probably the one doing it. Like, it's very, very obvious. It's high school mean girl behavior. Here's Ben Shapiro's response, where he's calling her out on what she's saying, and of course she's going to deny meaning it in the way that he thinks she intended it.
Responded to her tweet, blessed are the peacemakers, etc., saying, Candice, if you feel that taking money from the Daily Wire somehow comes between you and God, by all means, quit.
And that's actually a very smart response if you take into consideration, like, just assume for a second, whether you believe it or not, assume for a second that that was a direct attack on Ben. Holier than thou, virtue signaling. Oh, you have to put God's law first. You can't put God's law and man's law. It can't be both. It's one or the other. It has to be God's law first. And then Christ is king as an anti-Jew sentiment. Let's assume for a second that that was her intent. Then his response is, okay, so you clearly don't believe what the Daily Wire believes, but you're still taking money of them. So does that apply? Are you putting God first in that respect? Very clever response, assuming he thought she did it on purpose, which clearly he did, because it's not like she said his name. He read between the lines on that one. People chose to focus on the second part, which was by all means quit, which was, in people's view, him feeling offended by something that wasn't even about him, although I think it was, and then suggesting that she quit. I think if you read between the lines, it is more of like he knew it was about him. It was about him. And he was calling her bluff, being like, oh, really? You put God first in all? Okay, well, then if you think the Daily Wire is so bad, you don't have to work there. You don't have to take the money anymore. I think it's very, very clever if you think about it in that way, which is obviously the way he meant it, because he believed that she was making a remark in regards to him.
Okay, shots fired. Candice responds to that by saying, you have been acting unprofessional and emotionally unhinged for weeks now. And we have all had to sit back.
And then she acts like he said something much worse than he did. If she really didn't want this to be like a blow up fight, a controversy, she could have just been like, hey, I'm sorry, that actually wasn't about you. That was just about my faith. I'm sorry that you perceived it that way. No, she's gonna make it worse, because that's what mean girls do. They provoke you subtly, and then when you respond to that provocation, they pretend they don't know what you're talking about. They're pretending that you're the emotional one. She's been sharpening this since high school, I can tell.
Allow it, and have all tried to exercise exceeding understanding for your raw emotion. Wow. But you cross a certain line when you come for scripture and read yourself into it.
See, that's what she's doing. What are you talking about? I was just quoting scripture. It had nothing to do with you. I'm sure it didn't, Kansas. I'm sure it didn't.
Will not tolerate it. So she, it seems, saying there when she said, blessed are the peacemakers, persecutors, you can't serve God and money, that she was not talking about Ben Shapiro, but that is how her tweet was interpreted.
Side note, Mark Driscoll has a very good sermon about Jezebels who weaponize the Bible and virtue signal and use the quotes from the Bible to shame other people while they are the ones, in fact, being naughty.
What he said about her was circulating in a video, but she says it's not about that. And this also reminds me, we don't have it in this document, but back when the Kanye West thing was happening, when he was making those Ben Shapiro also said something publicly about that and about Candice, I believe, and she responded basically saying, like, you can just text me. You can talk to me personally about this. We don't need to air this out publicly.
And remember that she said that because when she was tweeting just now, she was definitely blowing it up. She was definitely fueling the fire. She was definitely making it public. And only after she made it public and got her little jabs in on X did she go, okay, I will set it up privately. It's like, oh, the thing you could have done from the beginning? Okay. So let's not pretend Candice is above all this. She certainly acts like it, but she is not.
So again, this is not the first time that they have had tension. And so in the midst of that, her tweeting, Christ is king, it's kind of become a rallying cry. However, it did not start here. And it started at least a few years ago, and not as a triumphant declaration of Jesus's lordship, but as something
Okay, so she's about to get into how and why Christ is king, especially in the context that she just spelled out, why Ben Shapiro might have seen it that way, and why I don't think Candice is as innocent as she's pretending to be, because there's no way she didn't know about this, especially if Ben knows about this. They were working for the same platform. There's no way this wasn't discussed. There's no way this wasn't mentioned. There's no way she didn't know about these people who are using Christ as king as an insult or the opposite of what it means, essentially. So let's hear this out.
Pretty sinister. And again, this is not about Candice. I'm not saying that this is what she meant when she said that Christ is king back in November,
I'm saying
or
that.
anytime that she
I
has
think
said
that's what
it
she meant.
since. She may not have even known that it was associated with anyone else.
She's being very nice because she's friends with Candice, but I think Candice meant this. I think she's a mean girl. I think she is a smart woman. I think she is very, very capable of saying something undercover, of poking a bear subtly, so that later on she can play dumb, she can play innocent, she can pretend, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know why you're so worked up. I don't know why you're so upset. But you know, Candice.
Some people did see that Christ is king, that she says, as a retort to Ben and his Jewishness. I don't think that she would accept that interpretation of what she said, but that is how it was interpreted by many people, partly because of the association that the phrase has with someone named Nick Fuentes. This is how the Christian Post describes him. This gives you just kind of an idea. Nick Fuentes is an American radical far-right political commentator who has become well known for his anti-Semitic, racist, and Holocaust-denying statements. He has been kicked off of all major social media sites, including Elon Musk's newer pro-free speech version of X, for his extreme rhetoric. He does have a Rumble page. He is the founder of the America First movement. He describes it as the synthesis of traditional values, Trumpian populism, and American nationalism. So here are just some examples. Now, he would probably say that these were jokes, but this is part of why he has been kicked off and why he is seen as extreme. Fuentes, on video, has jokingly compared Jews to cookies baking in an oven, while trying to say that the math doesn't add up to the 6 million Jews killed in the Holocaust. In an August 5th podcast episode, since removed from YouTube but reported by Right Wing Watch, he referred to Daily Wire columnist Matt Walsh as a Shabbos Goy race traitor because he works for Jews. Ben Shapiro at Daily Wire. Fuentes added, yeah, okay, keep typing on twitter.com, FAGGOT, and then says that again, race traitor, you work for Jews, you know. So Nick Fuentes has a history.
Holy crap. Okay. And it's very, very easy to be shocked by these things that Nick Fuentes has said and been like, oh, well, clearly Candice isn't like that. Candice couldn't possibly mean anything that this man also meant. But just because he started it doesn't mean you're necessarily associated with him or everything he says because he started it, because it took off and several other people did it. And you know that insulting Christians, insulting Jews, it's like everywhere online. Honestly, it's everywhere. Like there has not been, I watch pastors and Christian podcasts, and there has not been a single one, popular one, where I haven't gone in the comments and seen people call God a sky wizard or something to that effect. Like it's not hard, it's not flagged, it's everywhere. So I find it very hard to believe that she didn't know, not necessarily where it came from. Maybe she doesn't know Nick Fuentes, maybe she doesn't know where it started, but I think she knows how people were using it.
Ben Shapiro. He was kicked out of a Turning Point USA event in 2019. He proceeded to harass Ben Shapiro, who was walking into the event with his family. So here's stop one.
Ben!
This is shameful.
It's great to see you. Why did you give a 45-minute speech about me at Stanford? And you won't even look at my...
Hey, he's with his kids.
Come on, I'm right here. Hey, let him cross, man. Let him cross. I know you're with your family, but I can't get you anywhere else. A 45-minute speech? Wow. Well,
so shameful.
That's our free speech warrior, everybody. Champion of the battle of ideas.
So that's Nick Fuentes. We also have a video of him kind of telling his views of what is wrong with quote unquote Jewish power in the United States. And then again, using this Christ is King chant.
The word is getting out that we got to get rid of Jewish power in America. We are here to say that America is not a Jewish nation. America is a Christian nation.
Yeah, they are chanting Christ is King. And again, this isn't the first person like this. Like, she does associate herself with Kanye West, who has said similar things. She does associate herself with Andrew Tate. I don't know. I do not believe that she didn't know about this usage of Christ as King. I would venture to say she probably knew about Nick Fuentes. At the very least, she knew how Christ is King was being used online.
All right, so that is Nick Fuentes. Again, I'm not sure if this is original to him or original to his followers or original to his movement, as it were, but this phrase as a chant goes back at least several years. Before Daily Wire and Candice split, this Nick Fuentes made a video praising Candice Owens, and here's top 3.
Candice Owens has just been on a tear lately. She has been in a full-fledged war against the Jews, and specifically some of these Zionist rabbis. And I've been watching her evolution. It's been remarkable to witness.
Yeah, so then the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which is a left-wing organization, they tweeted out, white supremacist and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes is praising Candice Owens' vitriolic anti-Semitism. It's hardly surprising, but it does set off alarm bells. When bigoted people come together to push anti-Semitic agenda, it adds fuel to the fire of hate. And Candice Owens responded to that by saying, I do not know Nick Fuentes, but you already know that. What I do know is that everyone can see what you guys are doing to me. Your pattern is well established and the world is waking up to it. My crime is having stood up for myself against your network of smears. This relates to her departure from the Daily Wire. That was on Thursday that this was happening, last Thursday, the 21st, and then on the 22nd is when Jeremy Boring declared that their relationship had ended. So I don't know if Nick Fuentes and his words and his history of harassment of Ben Shapiro and then him praising Candice, I don't know that that has anything to do with the
I don't think Nick Fuentes praising Candice had anything to do with it. But as much as we do know that has come out publicly, I am positive that there has been a lot more happening behind the scenes. And I feel like Ben has worked with Candice. He's heard her speak. He knows how she does things. I am positive that he or someone around him has caught on to her mean girl behaviors and knows exactly what she's doing. And maybe it was she got fired because even if they can't publicly prove, because that was her intent, to be able to make a pointed remark without anyone being able to prove it, she overstepped a line, and that's what she got fired for, because the whole world doesn't have to know that she meant what we think she meant. The company that hired her knew what she meant, and that's enough to risk her job. She posted that, hoping she wouldn't get caught, and I think she did.
With the severing of the relationship, I'm guessing that the talks were probably already happening before the announcement. Maybe that was kind of just the straw that broke the camel's back. I don't think that we really know. And like I said, Candice is saying that she doesn't even know who Nick Fuentes is. And Nick Fuentes, is saying some really awful stuff about Candice. Now, things that...
I think Candice Owens saying, I don't know who Nick Fuentes is her passing the buck, trying to draw attention off the fact that she said this thing, and it immediately went to Nick Fuentes, which is how this is being used negatively online. And then she's like, I don't even know who that is. Again, playing innocent, where it's you don't have to know who he is. You are on the internet. You're probably on the internet more than most people, because that's where you work. And I'm sure you knew how this was being used.
He thinks are great, but that are actually awful, that I don't think anyone would want someone to say about them. He's saying, for example, that he said that Candice is going full. He said that, I love how the intro is so generic, but it's she's going full 1488. She's going, well, no, she's really going full 88. 1488 is a combination of two popular white supremacist numeric symbols. The first symbol is 14, which is shorthand for 14 words. Slogan, we must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. The second is 88, which stands for Hail Hitler. So I didn't
know that's what those numbers meant, but damn, Nick Fuentes is out there. Gosh, he's an awful human.
Candice wants this kind of association. She doesn't want this kind of description. So I'm not saying that is what caused her departure from the Daily Wire. Again, we don't know, but this all kind of came together in an unfortunate and perfect storm, and somehow kind of led to this Christ is King chant going viral and spreading on Sunday. There are some people saying, well, no, Christ is King is just a Christian declaration. It is the central Christian tenet. There is nothing anti-Semitic about this. This has nothing to do with Israel, has nothing to do with Judaism, has nothing to do with Candice Owens or the Groypers, who that's kind of the name of the people that follow Nick Fuentes, has nothing to do with them. Anyone saying that is just trying to signal to the left, and that's just crazy. There's nothing. And then you've got people over here saying, no, this is clearly being used as an anti-Semitic declaration, even if it is true. And so
the left has shown us over and over again for years now that you can take something, take a word that means nothing serious and twist it a little bit and turn it into something. I mean, even the word woke originally meant that you were awake to the societal pressures or realities or systemic pressure, whatever. And now it means progressive people, essentially, far left crazy progressives. Let's not pretend that you can't take something that means something good and twist its meaning to mean something negative or to be an attack, because we've seen it happen over and over again. So yes, Christ is King is a good thing. Christians definitely should not let this become a rallying cry for people who are against the Christian faith. But you also can't be ignorant and ignore that that's how it's being used. That's what I don't buy about Candice's story. You knew that's how it was being used. You're a liar. My opinion.
The Blaze's Jason Whitlock asked a question, and it's sincere. Jason is a sincere guy. He's being honest. He's not trying to, be funny or to play a rhetorical trick. He asked, how is saying Christ is King anti-Semitic? When did that become true? And so Daily Wire co-founder Jeremy Boring responded. He said this. He said, how is saying that Christ is king anti-Semitic? He says the same way anything becomes anti-Semitic when it is used for the purpose of expressing anti-Semitism, in the same way that someone would answer the question, how does a shovel become a murder weapon? He says more. I won't read all of it. He says, when did this become so? He says, it has always been so. And he says, so he's kind of doing a question and answer format. And his tweet, is it so? Yes, innately. Additionally, saying Christ is king for an evil purpose, like using it as a weapon to express your hatred or disdain for the Jews, is a grave sin. It plainly violates the third commandment, thou shalt not carry forth the name of the Lord thy God in vain. And then he goes on to explain his view that yes, Christ is king, sure enough, king of heaven and of earth, king of Jew and Gentile alike. Yet a bruised reed he will not break, a faintly burning wick he will not smother. So don't use his name as a cudgel to bash those in whom the light of God yet flickers. If you do, you are a blasphemer and an anti-Semite and a piece of crap generally. So that is his perspective on that. Of course, not that Christ is king is innately anti-Semitic or that it has anything to do with trying to purposely or pointedly slam Jews, but anything can become that way. True phrases can be used in an evil way. Of course they can. But I would venture to say that using the Lord's name in vain by saying Christ is king to mean something other than Christ is king, for reasons other than sharing the gospel, for reasons other than giving hope and peace to the Christian, is not very French. That it's actually happening a lot more pervasively and is happening via very prominent people.
Which is why Candice Owens knew about it. She is a Christian. She is in these communities, these online communities. She knows how people who are not Christians speak about Christianity. So for her to feign ignorance, I just do not buy it.
Not quite as, oh, this is just this thing happening over here that we don't need to pay attention to. Actually, what we're seeing online is not just people who hate Jews saying this as a slam to Jews, but we're also seeing outright Muslims and non-believers saying this as a slam to Jews. You've got Sneeko, who is, I don't even know who Sneeko is, a huge influencer. He's Muslim. He tweeted out, Christ is king. You also have Andrew Tate, who is a Muslim. He said, as a Muslim, it warms my heart to see the resurgence of spirited Christian declarations. Christ is king. And I pray Christianity regains its strength and protects its societies against the pervasive and constant erosion of morality by the devotees of Satan. If you accept everything, you stand for nothing.
He is a devotee of Satan, I promise you. In his debate with Candice Owens, he told her that the reason he left the Christian faith was because he felt that Christians were weak, like they were not adamantly defending their faith. But it's like, you're not Christian because of other Christians. You're Christians because you believe in Jesus, because you seek relationship with Jesus. I very much think he switched to the Muslim faith so that he could justify all the things he's doing that the Christian Bible would tell you not to do, like having multiple wives, for example. He's also I honestly, as manly as he'd like you to think he is, I think he fights like a girl. I think what he's doing here, I think he also knew exactly what he was doing. Like I said, I think him and Candice got along a little too well. She was a little too soft on him. I don't buy it here either.
Yeah, you're just not going to convince me. You're not going to convince me that the guy who recently converted to Islam, whose faith says to kill the infidel, that he really believes in the strength of Christianity.
Exactly.
I know for a fact that he doesn't.
Exactly. You're not going to convince me as well that Candice Owens didn't know exactly what she was doing. What she thought was that she was going to get away with it. Was that Daily Wire wouldn't risk not having enough proof to have people on their side when they fired her, but they stood on principle and they were like, no, we know what you're doing. Bye, girl. And now she's mad. She's mad because she thought she'd get away with it and she didn't.
That he doesn't. So we should maybe ask ourselves, like, what would be the motivation for someone who is a Muslim, who disdains everything about the Christian moral order, obviously, by how he orders his own life. What motivation would he have to declare that Christ is king? Like, let's just put our thinking caps on for a second, use some deductive reasoning, use the logic that God gave us the ability to use in our God-given brains, and ask ourselves, like, why would a prominent Muslim be interested in declaring something like Christ is king? I think it's fair to ask. And then Seth Dillon pointed out, he posted this screenshot. Not everyone is hiding what they mean by it very well. And the screenshot is, Christ is king, you nasty Jew. Joel Berry, also of the Babylon Bee, tweeted out someone's tweet, Christ is king, you Zionist slime. Jake Shields says, is saying Christ is king anti-Semitic? And then Isabella Moody, now maybe she would say that she was joking about this. She says, hopefully that's why I say it.
You don't have to look very hard to find these comments on X. They are everywhere. And as much as Candice Owens uses X, I promise you she knew how it was being used. I promise you she knew what she was doing when she wrote it. She knew how it would be taken. She just thought she would get away with it, and she didn't.
And then you've got classically Abby, that's Ben Shapiro's sister. She's a very sweet woman that just talks about motherhood and modesty. And she posted a picture of her with her baby, and someone responded, nice nose, careful you don't poke the baby's eyes out, which of course is an anti-Jewish trope. Also, Christ is king. And
I'm sorry, that's so trash. That's so trash. Because you don't like someone, Ben Shapiro or Jewish people attacking a female that's related to them, just like people saying awful things when Trump's sister died. Not liking someone does not give you the right to attack their family. Like, that's trash behavior.
that is part of what is happening on X right now. And those are just a few examples. Again, I am certainly not impugning the motives of everyone or even most people saying Christ is king. I'm not saying that it is bad or wrong to say Christ is king as a Christian. That is a source of comfort and hope and strength and victory for the Christian. But I just want us to really understand what that means. If the good news of the gospel is not something that you believe, is not something that you cling to, then you really have no business saying Christ is king, because one day you will wish he weren't.
Part of the problem is there are so many people who think they're Christian, who think, oh, well, I go to church on Easter Sunday. I believe in God, so I'm Christian. And I get it. You're a nominal Christian. I have said over and over again, I used to be a nominal Christian, and it wasn't out of hatred. It was honestly, it was out of ignorance. I did not know any better. Being Christian means you are actively pursuing relationship with God. You are reading your Bible. You are obeying the commandments. You are doing what the Bible says to do, and you are learning what the Bible says. It's not like it's an easy read, and you are actively pursuing relationship with the word, which is God. If you're not doing any of those things, don't call yourself Christian, because you just confuse people. You're the people who hurt people, and then people hate Christians forever because, well, they're a Christian and they did this. No, no, calling yourself Christian does not make you a Christian, and that's part of the problem. And I think, I don't know, I would assume that most of the people saying, oh, well, I don't mean Christ is king that way. It's like, okay, well then, I'm not saying don't say it, but don't remain ignorant. You know, once you realize that people are using it that way, be careful how you use it. You don't want to allow people with negative intentions to stop you from declaring what you know to be true, obviously. But, I don't know, I feel like Candice Owens knew what she was doing. She did it on purpose. And that, on top of everything else, makes her a liar and a hypocrite, because she wouldn't have done that. She wouldn't have done that if she was as committed to her faith as she pretends to be.
All of you who are taking the Lord's name in vain when you say Christ is king, so using it for other purposes besides declaring that which is true, aka sharing the good news of the gospel, you will one day wish that he weren't king.
Okay, so that's it. That's the basics of how that all went down. I think that's really important. I think a lot of people, PBD Podcast included, kind of touched on the Christ is King thing, but only long enough to say, oh, everything can't be anti-Semitic. She's not being anti-Semitic. You can't just call everything anti-Semitic. And it's like, no, I think you really have to go into what happened, because I really think she did it on purpose. Like, maybe I'm wrong, but I think the Daily Wire knows her. I would hope and assume that the Daily Wire would not just fire her based on them thinking she meant it a certain way. I feel like they worked with her long enough to know how she acted and behaved. And honestly, if you go watch her talk, you will see for yourself. In my opinion, I watched her speak in and outside of the Daily Wire. She's been on PragerU, she's been on Turning Point. There's something going on behind the scenes with her, and I really think it's that she's a catty, backstabby, mean girl. Even the Rubin Report video where he's like, we used to be friends, I don't know what happened. She blocked me on social media and deleted my number, or changed her number and didn't give me the new one. There's a very catty, backstabby thing going on behind the scenes that the public isn't seeing, and I'm honestly hoping that this comes to light with the debate that Ben Shapiro and Candice Owens have. Hopefully they actually have it. Hopefully she doesn't just go, oh, I'm going to make the arrangements, in private now, and then she makes up some story why it can't happen or they can't work it out. I'm kind of predicting that's what's going to happen, but I really hope they actually have the sit down, because a lot of people are saying a lot of things, mostly the opposite of what I'm saying, and I would really like to see how that works out. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you guys got any value from it, or would like to see more of things like this, please remember to like and subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Hopefully after Candice Owens and Ben Shapiro have had their debate.